This week's episode of This Is Only a Test is made possible with support from Storyblocks. Every content creator should try a Storyblocks membership. Their ever-growing library consists of 4K footage, After Effects and Premiere Pro templates, music, images, sound effects, and much more. And Storyblocks' Restock initiative is here to change the landscape of stock media by partnering with BIPOC and LGBTQI+ creators. Their Queer Spaces and Faces initiative will feature 6 new contributors from the LGBTQI+ community, each creating a collection that features their community authentically and relatably. Explore that library and subscribe today at storyblocks.com/onlyattest. Once again, that's storyblocks.com/onlyattest.
Hey, let's start the show.
For Thursday, June 24th, 2021. Welcome to This Is Only a Test, the official podcast of Tested. Well, there you have it. We've got a new dubstep intro, which can only mean one thing.
Wait. That wasn't dubstep. There was no drop.
That is also true. Les Reverb, who noted This Is Only a Test contest winner, Les Reverb, who made our new intro last year, sent over a dubstep remix of his theme. And Will, as much as I appreciate not only you guesting here this week, which allows us to play this quote-unquote dubstep remix, I agree with your sentiment there. This is the first time I actually have listened to that theme. I just trusted that it worked. The file name is dubstep theme. I did not hear a drop.
I appreciate the sentiment. And I think it's the honor of having your own intro theme when you guest on a podcast is like there is in my book, there's no higher honor norm. That's top tier. It's like the Grammys, the Emmys, the Oscars, custom podcast theme intro.
Right. You get the EGOT and then EGOT plus custom podcast theme.
Yeah, that's it. That's pretty much what I'm thinking about.
That's the cherry on top. Well, I always have to imagine the wubs with that. Jeremy, you're probably the most musically inclined of all of us. Welcome to the show. Welcome.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. I've heard you play piano on the Switch Labo, and you're not bad. I can tell you've had some lessons.
I can do the Rugrats theme.
Mm-hmm.
I can do chopsticks. There's only one octave, or is it like a little over 1 octave on the Switch Labo. So,
I was impressed.
You're tickling the cardboard as opposed to the ivories there.
You got it. Will, I would just say you got to let dubstep evolve, man. Like maybe they don't all have a drop.
I mean, look, I feel like usually, yes, I'm 100. Like when the National evolved from being like indie rock to dad rock in over a period of 3 weeks there in 2008, I was okay with that. But I feel like we're pretty much. If you take out the drop, you've removed the defining characteristic of the dubstep. That's just my uninformed opinion.
Yeah.
Maybe Les Reverb should rename himself Les Drop.
Oh,
Les Reverb is a very good name.
Fewer drops. Yeah. Well, it's good to see you guys. I also want to thank Bill Duran and Joel Telling for guesting last week on a variant episode. You should catch that if you haven't listened to it yet. We dove into their YouTube channels, how they produce their content, as well as current state of rapid prototyping and 3D printing. But we're back to a more standard format. Lots to do and lots to catch up. We actually didn't get a chance to even talk about all the news that came out of E3. So we'll just jump right into it. We don't do formal segments anymore, but as guys who follow and work in the games business, I'm joined by 2 game developers this week.
Well, hold on. No. I mean, Jeremy has actual skills. I mostly just send emails, it turns out.
What caught your eye at E3? And I understand we're going to talk about some of the stuff that you guys are working on too. But what were the things that really jumped out at you? Is it Breath of the Wild 2? Was it yet unnamed sequel? Was that the big highlight?
I mean, I'm excited about another more Breath of the Wild is always good. I like some of the indie stuff really jumped out. I can't remember the name. Sable, the it looked like a Breath of the Wild kind of exploration game that was all cartoony and cel shaded. It was made by I think 2 people. Like looked unbelievable to me. That I'm excited that Arcane is making a co-op open world shooter. That sounds rad.
Yeah.
More from games. Like there was a lot of good stuff, it seemed like to me.
Yeah. No, I the Arcane game is probably the thing I'm most excited about. Besides, I don't know. I never played the Battlefield games, but I still think that cinematically those 2 trailers were the most impressive to me.
2042.
Yeah, with 128 players. That looks really interesting. I might have to try that. And of course, the Legend of Zelda Game & Watch is a must buy. Actually already pre-bought.
What is that? Tell me about that.
Oh, you remember the Mario version, right?
Oh, like, yes. Yeah.
So you were too young to remember the Game & Watch, but Will and I grew up with these. These were the bee's knees.
I was too old.
Wait, what? Really?
Wait, no. I mean, I was too young. No, I never knew anybody who I'd never seen one of those in person before.
Oh, there was a year or so in elementary school where that was the thing. Like, forget every other toy. Like the people who came to school with the Donkey Kong flip up version of that, or the Mario.
So you got to explain, because for people listening to the audio, this is that whole generation of handheld games that were basically like calculator style LCD screens,
right.
Fixed number of frames in animation, and your characters would maybe flip between 3 or 4 states. But you'd still be able to play a game that would be akin to what you'd play on your NES back then with the same characters, in this case Donkey Kong. But again, it's like 4 frames of animation you're switching between, and remixes, right?
This is Nintendo before the NES. Like this is how it all sort of started, and it was
really
it was great. Yeah, wasn't it? Yeah, the Game & Watch.
I thought it was between the NES and the Game Boy.
Oh, maybe.
I don't know.
I remember. I feel like it was early, but correct me if I'm wrong.
There was a lot. Like I definitely remember like people getting digital watches that had like little janky versions of Q*bert on them that were just like LCD. The animations were LCD panes.
Yeah,
and like you could make him hop up the side of the watch and then get eaten by the snake.
I mean, the LCD stuff was an interesting approach, because like you could only have one image, in a portion of the screen. It wasn't like reusable because they weren't pixels. They were drawings. They were like LCD drawings that would show up on the screen. You move things around,
like stencils, right? Basically, you have a silhouette of a character.
Yeah,
but like you said, they couldn't occupy the same space. So if you think of like, and I'm sure most of you probably have seen one of these, but like I'll go back to the calculator example. Like the 8 can represent all the numbers in decimal, but here you have like 3 frames of Donkey Kong that would transition 1, 2, 3, and they would just play them back as you press the buttons to move them left or right.
Yeah.
Well, so the remakes,
the remakes are of course like LCD screens, color, backlit, beautiful full res, and they play the Nintendo games, the NES games. So you've got on this one you have the original Super Mario Brothers. And you have the Super Mario Brothers 2, which never came out in the US. It was
the Lost Levels.
Yeah, it was only released in Japan because it was as if Super Mario Brothers kept going and kept getting harder. They felt like it was too difficult for the US audience. We're a bunch of numbskulls.
Have either of you actually played that ever? It's hard.
I haven't.
It's like I loaded up on the Mister when I set up the Mister, and like it is legitimately difficult. Like the timing's hard. There's poison mushrooms. It's like those. It's not as bad as those like custom homebrew levels where you watch the people suffering on YouTube, but it's like in that same vein for sure.
And the Zelda one's going to be just what you think. The first 2 Zelda games, and who knows what else. Maybe I'm sure there's a clock.
And Link's Awakening for the Game Boy.
That's it.
So speaking of Zelda, Breath of the Wild 2, again, I still think probably the thing. Nintendo had a massive presence there with a games showcase, no hardware announced. They'll be ready to announce hardware when they're ready. The fact that there's no name, it's still Untitled sequel. They said because to reveal the name would reveal too much about a specific direction or character. So there's mystery with this, but it's going to be coming out next year. And you had a new Mario Rabbids game, for which some of the art and screenshots for the Nintendo stuff really is telegraphing the fact that there's going to be more advanced hardware potentially this holiday. So I think that's what's getting me excited. We talked about the Playdate 2 weeks ago. Between the Playdate and this retro Zelda game, and also potentially new Nintendo Switch hardware, it's gonna be interesting. Like, we had all the next gen consoles last year. It's been nice new hardware season for games this year.
Go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
Jeremy.
I wasn't saying nothing.
Oh,
The other game that I want to talk about, that did you see the trailer or screenshot for Replaced?
No.
It's an Xbox game.
no.
No?
Google it. Replaced. Quickly, it is a side scroller, and it has an aesthetic that I think both of you would really appreciate.
It looks like inside, but
It
more colorful.
looks like, but
it's like
also
rotoscoped?
pixel art. No, side scroller. And sort of
Oh,
is
I
the
saw
developer
this.
for this, and coming to PC, Xbox, and Game Pass. But it has like a more stylized pixel art look. I think we went through this whole phase in the indie game and big budget games where there was a pixel art look, but they're combining really smooth animation, lots of post processing, lighting to this, while still maintaining for the individual characters and environments all the aliasing, I should say, and particle effects, but all pixel art based particle effects.
Yeah, and
Looks really cool.
They're doing a thing with the camera where they rotate it like this,
Mhm.
like Dutch angles, which is like a big no with pixel art. So I want to take a closer look. Like, are they actually moving the pixels like this, or is it at high res and the pixels sort of keep level and the camera moves around them? I didn't describe that very well, but that's really interesting what they're doing.
I wonder
Yeah,
if this is like Dead Cells, where they're using 3D assets to generate the pixel art. Because I think Dead Cells, they made 3D versions of the characters and then used those to generate the sprites that are used in the game.
Like a shader, like they run it through a shader so they can have more versatility, because they're creating the higher res 3D assets, but process frame by frame. It looks aliased, and it looks. I think there's traditional pixel art animation going on here, but I do think you're right that it's grafted onto the fundamentals of the 3D engine, because that allows them to do all the camera movements, the parallax, all the post processed lighting. It just looks gorgeous.
Yeah,
it's a game made for HDR, really.
Yeah, it has a real. It has a style, which I appreciate.
Mm-hmm. And then the last big game, Starfield, I think was probably well, there's also the George R. Martin, like the Elven game. I'm not as familiar with that world. I know people are really excited about that, but in terms of science fiction, Starfield is the new BioWare franchise, their new sci-fi game.
Yeah, I've never yet gotten into a Bethesda game. Most people have played Skyrim on 5 platforms.
What?
And I haven't played it on 1.
What?
I never got into Fallout. So, but if there's one genre that would do it for me, it's this one. Like, I want to go in outer space. This is my thing. So I'm looking forward to trying it. I honestly am, and I hope I get hooked, because I want to experience the depth of one of their games.
Sorry, Bethesda, not BioWare. I conflated the two studios.
Look, they're all bees eventually.
And this is Microsoft owned now, because Microsoft did acquire Bethesda, and so this all is bolstering the Game Pass and the Xbox platform. I think a lot of the sentiment was coming out of the C3 was that the Xbox came out really strong. PS5 had a really great launch lineup that made it really compelling for people to get the exclusives there. You had the launch of Ratchet and Clank that people were really enjoying. Sony owns Insomniac, but Xbox maybe more stuff in the works, and with Game Pass being a big thing for those owners, it's going to be a really exciting holiday season.
I mean, Game Pass is hard to pass at this point, right? Like, the constant stream of new games is for $15 a month is pretty compelling.
Yeah, totally.
Norm, I was just real curious, real quick, what you and Kishore, I know he's not here to say, but what do you guys think of the Guardians of the Galaxy game?
I didn't play the Marvel's Avengers game, and this is that, but different skin, new environments, and it's funny because a lot of people, I think people really like that game after all the patches and all the expanded content, but there's a disconnect for people who maybe grew up with the MCU or the comics, because it is their own interpretation of the visual interpretation, character design of those characters with you're playing this multiplayer or this essentially like a dungeon crawler, right? It's a combat game through the Marvel world, and the characters initially don't look as cool because over time, as you kind of level up and build up the armament, they become looking like the more iconic versions. I don't know if Guardians transfers well, and there's so much of the Guardians characters is tied to the movie portrayals, like Dave Bautista as Drax.
You feel that
And
way? Because that's how
I
obviously I feel, but I didn't know if
yeah,
you were coming from the same place.
I think because the Guardians in the comics were they had humor, but I think the movies influence the characters so much because James Gunn brought so much of the unique personality and became such a phenomenon. Guardians was really a B rate comic book in terms of how popular they were in the Marvel comic universe.
Okay.
So to make that the forefront of a big spin-off game, you can't get around all the comparisons between their Peter Quill and the Chris Pratt Peter Quill.
So,
But yeah,
I mean, should they have paid for the character
they
rights?
don't have the license. They don't have that license to do the MCU. It is a
they have-
Marvel Comics
boy.
license, and so they have to do their interpretations of that and use the same lineup. So you have Rocket, you have Gamora, you have Groot and Drax, but people are like, well, that Drax looks, even the performance wise, I don't know where the lines are in terms of can even be a Bautista dry Drax like performance, or does it have to be something different? People are going to play it for the gameplay, and as long as the gameplay is interesting and it's not buggy and it doesn't expose your IP when you're playing multiplayer, then then I think that'll be okay for the Avengers video game franchise.
Can we all agree to play Arcane's game when it comes out, Redfall? It's basically like Left 4 Dead, but with vampires. By a company who's really great at making games, but
It's
never
open
made a game
world.
like this.
It's open world. Nobody's done an open world one of those really yet, too, which is really interesting to me.
Speaking of Left 4 Dead and those type of games, I am, like I said earlier, joined by two people who work in the games business. How about that, Will?
That's probably
And
better.
Will, I think you had an announcement to make last week about what you're doing now. You talk about where you're at and the game that was announced.
Yeah, we talked about it on the Tech Pod a few weeks before that, but I started at Straight Bombay a month and a half ago now, helping with communications and some other stuff that we'll talk about more probably later. But yeah, I'm Chet, a friend of the site, Chet Falazek, reached out and was like, "Hey, can you come help us with some stuff? Maybe as a contract or something." And then I ended up just coming in full time, which is interesting and fun and exciting. And it is very, as Jeremy I think can probably tell you, things are a little bit different from the inside. You understand a little bit more about how things go, but it's amazing to me. It's a really small team. There's like 20. I think I was the 21st person and most of what was built for the trailer was built by about 12 people. So we're making as you can imagine with Chet involved, a co-op multiplayer shooter. It's set in a retro future outer space. There's aliens, and it's designed to be like co-op first and aggressively cooperative is what I've been saying internally. So like all the decisions about how you pick up weapons and like how you access weapons are designed to foster cooperative play. So for example, like in Left 4 Dead, the person who was in front of the pack usually got the good first pick of the good stuff. With this, we put everything in boxes so that when you reach the box, everybody gets a shot at the box, stuff like that. It's been interesting getting to be part of these conversations, and the company was started by Chet and Dr. Kimberly Vole, who's who has a PhD in AI, who's built like all the AI for the game, and like they maintain the kind of Valve-esque flat infrastructure like internal to the company. So people come in, everybody contributes to everything, which has been really fun.
Wow.
And for people who don't know, Chet came from Valve, came to Valve working on Left 4 Dead.
So
or worked on a lot of stuff, but also was one of the kind of like one of the more public facing stuff, not only for VR, but before that, Left 4 Dead, Left 4 Dead 2. Mm-hmm. And this is 4-player co-op. it's sci-fi, like retro sci-fi, like you said, on a big spaceship, and you're fighting monsters.
For let's see, for spaceship aficionados, you should think about the period between after Flash Gordon, and before Star Wars. So like smooth vacuum form plastic, solid bass lines, all that kind of stuff. Not like NASA concept art from the 60s, not greeblied up spaceships or like ray gun gothic spaceships. So there you go.
Awesome. Coming out this year, and the name of the game, Will?
Oh, it's the Anacrusis. The Anacrusis in music, as Norm probably knows, are the beats before the song starts. So you can probably infer some stuff from that.
If you guys do go back into the office one day,
Yes.
where are you based?
They're in Seattle. I'm in San Francisco still. So they went we went full remote before I started. When the pandemic started, a couple of people wanted to go back and be closer to home because they had young kids and they wanted family members around to help people that they could pod with and all that. And they made the decision that if they were going to offer that to one person or two people, then they should make that available as an option to everyone. And as a result, they're like we kept offices in Seattle, but we have people in Texas and San Francisco and a couple other places now. It actually made hiring pretty easy and like, as they said, like it didn't impact. There was a brief period where they were figuring out systems and stuff. I mean, you guys went through this too, I'm sure, Jeremy, where like you figured out like infrastructure stuff and how to do meetings and stuff like that. And then after that, it kind of just became like everybody just was more flexible and things got good. So.
Oh yeah, no, I think there's a lot of benefits to remote work. Absolutely, like the time saved is across the board, not just commuting, but like you like I've said this on the podcast before. There's not that get to the meeting and chit chat part, and then there's like socializing after the meeting, and then
some people really like that part.
I know
some people would say there's happy what was the Steve Jobs things like chance encounters or
right,
whatever you call it.
No, and that's good. Like you do miss out on that, but it's also inefficient. It like does eat away from your time. So it's actually like there's arguments for and against, and I think there's the happy medium is probably the best place to be. I know there's a lot of people still planning to be remote part-time, and that's the way it's always going to be.
Yeah, I tend to agree. We've been intentional about like adding in places for those kinds of chance encounters. Like, so we have like social times and stuff like that where we actually book chatting with each other and like we're always trying new stuff. So it's a small company. So you can
for a while there, Chet was
stuff.
doing, I don't know, weekly streams. Is he still doing it?
He still does it. Like that's been part of his strategy. Like if you like playing co-op games, you should come to the Stray Bombay Discord at discord.gg/Stray Bombay because he does. Let's see, he loves mods and he loves co-op games. So he does co-op games on Wednesday night and he does they play mods on Thursday night. So it's like Left 4 Dead mods, like a lot of source mods on the mod stuff, but the co-op stuff he plays, they play like Deep Rock and Killing Floor and kind of if it's co-op, it counts and they'll play it. So
it's great. I love that idea. That's a great. And my son and I have played Deep Rock before Chet streamed it, and we were both into it. So I was glad to see that getting more exposure because that's an excellent game. I don't know if you played that before.
Deep Rock is an incredible game, and I played a little bit on stream. I played kind of a lot off stream. We should play sometime. I didn't realize you were into it.
Yeah, I love that game.
But yeah, it's like the thing that's happened over the last like 10 years is those games have kind of had like quietly started growing. Like Left 4 Dead was this huge juggernaut for a long time, and then it kind of went away when they stopped making new content for it. And then there was this kind of gradual uptick of these other co-op games. So I don't know. There were a lot of co-op games that came out at E3. We're excited to see that. Like I'm stoked because I like playing those games. Norm and I started playing. Like I remember going to play Left 4 Dead and Left 4 Dead 2 at Valve, the first PC Gamer LAN party. Valve and Turtle Rock brought the first Left 4 Dead to like when it was in kind of an alpha-y state to the LAN party, and like I remember the three of us and Stapes and whoever else was around would just go over there and play literally anytime we could weasel onto one of an empty station. So it was a lot of fun.
I'm gonna give you unsolicited feedback. Will?
Yeah, hit me.
And tell you one of the things that resonate a lot with me for Left 4 Dead is the characters, yes, but the environments. I felt like because it was so distinct in, set in the real world, obviously, and like in Left 4 Dead 2, Louisiana. It was like relatable, familial environments that let you fill in the blanks and create a world that was along with what Valve was doing, and so I hope that the environment in the Anacrusis is something that is memorable and something that can resonate with fans of this genre.
Well, we'll have to get you in to do a playtest soon, Norm, if we can pry you away from the kids.
Hey everyone, Norm here. Before we continue on, I want to let you know that this week's episode is also made possible with support from Hellofresh. With Hellofresh, you get fresh, pre-measured ingredients and mouth-watering seasonal recipes delivered right to your door. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on Hellofresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. With Hellofresh, there's something for everyone to enjoy, with all recipes designed and tested by professional chefs and nutritional experts to ensure deliciousness and simplicity. You can enjoy a wide range of easy, delicious options for all 3 meals a day, plus every snack and special treat in between with the HelloFresh Market. HelloFresh cuts out the stressful meal planning and grocery store trips so you can enjoy cooking and get dinner on the table in just about 30 minutes. It's also 28% cheaper than shopping at your local grocery store and 72% cheaper than a restaurant meal without sacrificing the quality. We had a chance to try out a couple of HelloFresh meals, and we really, really enjoyed them in the house here. We made some unique Gouda burgers with some ingredients that I wouldn't normally think to put in a burger, and made our own sauces, as well as some amazing mashed potatoes and mushroom chicken. Really just gave us the permission to experiment with some new ingredients and get familiar with amazing recipes. Go to hellofresh.com/14test and use 14test. It's 14test for up to 14 free meals plus free shipping. That's hellofresh.com/14test, 14test, and the code 14test for up to 14 free meals plus free shipping. Now back to the show. But it's not just you, Will, that has game stuff to talk about and announce. We know, Jeremy, when you're not on the podcast, you're working on a game as well.
Yeah. A year ago, I started working with friend of the show, Mike Micah, who is the I guess he really is the designer behind Star-Lords, the game that we made as a part of Bits to Atoms, which is all on YouTube now. If you want to go watch it, big 6-7 part documentary series about the making of an actual arcade game from scratch. His company hired me and my friend Dave about almost a year ago, and we worked on. I was going to say the code name for the game, but the Blizzard Arcade Collection and a couple other things. And then in mid-December, Microsoft put out the request for submissions for ideas for a game related to Space Jam: A New Legacy, the upcoming movie starring LeBron James. And lo and behold, we got the project, and we got thousands of submissions for ideas. And we synergized our favorite 2 into a single game, and we've been working on that nonstop ever since.
Since December?
The contest had to happen, so really starting mid-January.
Holy cow.
Yeah. So, and now it's we just got announced today. It's coming out on Game Pass next week in the first week of July, and then free to every Xbox owner on July 15th.
That's awesome.
And it is a 90s style brawler. It is a retro pixel art co-op.
Love co-op.
I expect to see this on your stream, on Chet's stream. But it's local co-op. So
never mind then.
With a 6-month project. And imagine developing a local co-op game during COVID.
How'd you do that? Like, were you just like grabbing? Is it 4 players?
3.
So did you just get the whole fam or 3/4 of the fam in to play games with you?
There was a lot of that, but you know what ended up being a absolute indispensable godsend is Steam's remote play together feature.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Because you can actually play any game that way. It doesn't have to be. It's supposed to be only a game on Steam, but there are a couple projects on GitHub that allow you to play any game.
What, really?
any local co-op game using remote play together. You need a donor game. I hope I'm not outing this. Like this is all out there. I'm not
God,
exposing.
this is I've been trying to do this for ages, so this is incredibly useful information.
So you get a donor game like Broforce, which supports remote play together, and you replace the executable or the executable with the game of your choice, the game you're developing in our case, and then it launches like a window instead of Broforce. It brings up the executable. I'm sorry, you don't launch it. You don't replace it with your game. You replace it with a thing from GitHub, which is like a little mini app, like a little man in the middle
launcher.
That then launches your game instead. And it's not flawless. It takes 3 tries to get working, but it'll work. And we couldn't have done it. We could not have developed this game without that. So that was great.
Oh, that's fabulous. But I've used Parsec for that before, but it has issues as well. And sometimes the person playing locally, there's weird sync problems. How, like, one of the things that I was surprised by is how much time we spend playtesting. Did you have a regular playtesting regimen, Jeremy?
I mean, it's playtesting, yes. I mean, but it was we had to schedule the multiplayer stuff, obviously. But like, it's always. I just felt like it was always playtesting. I mean, our game is not the same scope as yours. It was a small team, smaller scale thing, so we could finish our game, in under an hour. So that like playtesting was relatively easy. Plus, we can jump around with the dev tools, so we can go and test the part that we need. But I could imagine with a larger scope game like the testing. I've read that the people who did Hades do this thing where they make a build, they lock it like every week, and everybody in the company plays that same build for an hour, and then they come together and they give notes.
That's what we do, that Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So but we don't lock the build. We just play whatever the most recent build is. And sometimes it works, and then sometimes video game development stuff happens.
Well, the problem is, like, as a developer, I'm always playing the game in Visual Studio. Like I compile and it runs, and I can debug it while I'm playing it. And the problem is that when I find a bug, I have to like my brain wants to fix it. I get preoccupied. So the trick in playtesting is to lock that out, is to not let yourself fix bugs and to play the game. So that's the best part about making a build and sending it out to people, because they can't debug it.
I have to imagine like working on a 2D like a 2D side scroller, like at this point, a brawl game. I don't even remember what the genre is called at this point. But like
beat 'em up brawler.
like Turtles in Time, Simpsons, like classic arcade side scroller. Yeah.
Like the tools for making games now are so much better than they were then, because that would have been like a 18-month probably dev cycle if you'd done it in 1995.
Yeah.
But like where did you hit challenge? Like what was hard? What was the hard? I mean, I know obviously making a game, the whole fucking thing is hard, but like what did you not expect to be hard that turned out to be hard because you're making a brawler in 2021?
Well, I mean, the nice thing about making a brawler in 2021 is there's a lot of source material to be inspired by. Like, so we went back and we played a lot of Capcom brawlers, and we're heavily inspired by the Capcom stuff, not the Konami stuff you guys mentioned. Like Dungeons and Dragons, Shadows of Mystara, and there's a ton of them. But so there's just a lot of that to go back to and sort of riff off of. But we didn't use Unity. We didn't use Unreal. Like this was a from scratch. We used a game engine that is a 2D game engine written by Kevin, our chief technology officer. And it was all from scratch. Like all of the sprite, we can draw sprites, but there's no animation system. There's no collision system. There's no like sense of like AI. So all that was written from scratch. So I mean, it was all hard, but it was it was also something that we had complete control over, and it came together. Thankfully, there's a lot of people. There's a handful of people that worked really hard on this game for the last 6 months, and it was a ton of fun. We learned a lot.
That's so cool. What's your favorite Monster, Jeremy?
Hey! Don't spoil anything.
Look,
details.
The new movie's not out yet. I don't know.
That's right. July 16th, and the game comes out July 15th.
That's right.
It's totally a promo for it. It's going to be on HBO Max, and what a perfect way to transition, because recently on HBO Max, I want to talk about some movies. We watched Lin-Manuel Miranda's In the Heights. We're big Hamilton fans here on the show. We've kind
Heck
of
yeah.
espoused the word of Hamilton. You can listen to old episodes of Still Untitled, where or as we discovered the cultural phenomenon that was, and of course the last year the release of on Disney Plus the filmed recording of it. But John M. Chu, the director of such classic films as G.I. Joe Retaliation, also Crazy Rich Asians, but
Wait, is that
probably
the
most
second one?
notably, that was the second one.
The
There's
second
not
one's
the
the
new
good
Snake
one.
Eyes movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, the second one has the Snake Eye, the good one, right.
Yeah.
But also probably for me most notably the director of the Virgin America safety video.
What, really? Hold on, the animated one or the second one?
No, the live action one.
Oh, never mind then.
He has directed In the Heights, the film adaptation of the Tony Award winning musical that was Lin-Manuel Miranda's first Broadway work. So it's on HBO Max now. It was going to have a big theatrical release. It's a full 2.5 hour musical. And Jeremy, I know you watched it. Will,
it's on the.
Don't worry about spoilers.
Yeah.
It's a thing that the cast recording's been out for years and years. But Jeremy, again, as the most musically inclined person and the one that maybe Hamilton resonated the most with on the musical level, what did you think?
Yeah, I was thinking the other day, like of all the albums, like literally of all the albums I've ever listened to in my life, if you put them in a spreadsheet and then you had a column for like number of times played, I wouldn't be surprised if Hamilton was at the top, because it's not just me, it's my whole family. Like everybody likes the album. Kids love this album.
Yeah.
Like kids memorize this album. And so it's been on repeat, for the past 4 or 5 years, however long it's been. So yeah, I loved Hamilton. So I was looking very much forward to seeing where Lin-Manuel sort of came from, because I never had the opportunity to see In the Heights on the stage. And
Puerto Rico, Jeremy. Although, sorry, this movie's about the DR though, Dominican Republic. But yeah, from the DR to the PR. Yeah.
Right. So and I just loved it. I mean, I loved it because I not only like hip hop, I also love Latin rhythms very, very much. And so this is probably even more. This is more Latin influenced music than it is hip hop. And so, but it's just as many ballads as I would say in Hamilton. But you got this Latin flavor that's in addition to the raps. And I just had a grin on my face for the whole show. I just loved it. The music is great. It's cool to see a stage version of it versus like what was done with Hamilton, which was really a filmed version of the stage performance. This is for cinema. This is for theater. Or this is for the movie theater.
Yeah, filmed in New York. New York is such a big part. Washington Heights in New York is where it's set, and they were able to film in so many of the places that the reference where it's weird, because the whole time the structure of it, if you watch musical adaptations of Broadway musicals, like Les Mis famously, right? Like so much is what's imagined in production design and the clever things they have to do on stage. How do you capture that magic in a filmed version? Like, what do they add? What do they take away? How do they make it not look like they're just using, the ability to have a location or cuts?
Right.
I think that can take away sometimes, especially in the musical segments. Here, they really infuse choreography so much. The scale of the choreography is what they bring to it because they can film it. So whereas on a stage, you would have an ensemble of, a dozen people or so. Here you have hundreds of people potentially for these big numbers.
And so much of the background is synchronized to the music that is almost just like, a part of the ambience. If you're watching the film, you might not even notice it. It's just like things happening it's like a music video during the music numbers where it's so well choreographed back to the background characters and the what they're engaged with on the, in the world, dancing with and on. It's super cool. And there's a lot of dialogue in the movie too, which I didn't necessarily expect, given that Hamilton has almost zero. So I was curious if that's straight from the musical or not. I have no idea, but it was neat to see like parallels, but as well as the differences between Hamilton.
A lot of for me, La La Land in terms of the transition from dance numbers into personal story, and Anthony Ramos is the lead. He was, of course, part of the original Hamilton cast as Lawrence and Philip Hamilton, and I think he was the replacement or the understudy for Lin-Manuel, who played the lead in the original Broadway version of In the Heights. And everyone's super charismatic. The songs are catchy. There's a lot of the same. Like if you're familiar with Hamilton, you will recognize the beats
Did
and
you
the
get that too?
progressions. Oh my! There's a song 96,000, which may be my favorite one, and it's a big number on a big pool party where they talk about this lottery ticket,
Yeah.
and you can hear the song, and because it's Anthony Ramos, so you can hear the "Blow Them All Away," the Philip Hamilton song in that.
That's
Like,
funny.
and your brain kind of layers on top. And even though this came out before,
Right.
I say it's akin to Hamilton in the fact that it is akin, it is a sibling to Hamilton.
Oh, I
in
totally
many
agree
ways.
with you. And in fact, Danica and I years ago were talking about how we heard little bits of Hamilton in Moana. Like you hear it. Like he just
Oh,
has
yeah.
he has melodies in his head. Just that's just how songs come and go.
Yeah.
And it's I don't know. I guess it's when you hear a soundtrack so many times, you just start to recognize phrases from it.
Yeah.
In other work, and it's really cool. And even like the first song, like the beginning of My Shot, the I Want, the very big
Mhm.
opening number from Hamilton, that opens up with those big beats. Like I'm gonna get a scholarship at King's College. I
Yep.
probably shouldn't brag, but I imagine nostalgia.
Yep.
Like that is in this too. Like the very
Yeah.
opening number of this song is a big
In the
laugh.
Heights is
It's like
and
it's a
the
rap number,
flow,
but
right?
it opens with these beats in the exact same way, and it's
Yeah.
just cool.
Yeah.
It's familiar, and so it made me wonder, like, is he referencing In the Heights in Hamilton, or is that just how songs sound to him?
I think that's just how he flows.
Yeah.
He has a cadence. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Jimmy Smits is in this, and I think he's one of
He's
the
great.
best performers. He's so good. President Santos for West Wing fans, and yeah, so it's on HBO Max. It's one of those things I wish again we could see on the big screen. It's one of two big musicals coming out this year. The other one being Steven Spielberg's West Side Story, and it's gonna be an ongoing refrain for me because I know Jeremy, we have different opinions about this, and you're happy to watch a movie like this at home on a big screen TV with the family, and it's a 2.5 hour commitment for that. But I wish I had the opportunity to watch this in a Dolby Vision.
I
Theater.
saw footage of a theater watching In the Heights, and it made me want to be there. Like people were on their feet. It was like they were at a concert. It was like they were cheering after every number. It was like they were at a show on Broadway.
Yeah.
So there's certainly an argument to be made there.
The other big family release this week, you guys watch, this is on Disney Plus, is the new Pixar film, Luca. Now, this one almost for me came out of nowhere. I mean, maybe it's because of the time being so weirdly stretched and condensed at the same time over the past year. But we had Soul and Onward last year. Onward, famously one of the last films to come out in theaters right before a lockdown. Soul being available as a Christmas release for everyone to Disney Plus, and then this being the first kind of Pixar film in the new phase of releases where Disney has said all of the Pixar films are just going to be released on Disney Plus in addition to theaters, but for free for anyone with a subscription. They're not going to do the premier $30 pricing, which I think animation fans and Pixar fans have big strong feelings about, because while it's great for the consumer, it also I feel for the artists who are making these movies to be seen on the big screen.
Yeah, it's been, some people have argued they get seen by more people this way. Like if that's really the goal, if you really want to have your film enjoyed by as many people as possible, this is actually more people.
Well, and your kids are too young to have reached this point yet, but like there was a time when my daughter was old enough to go to the movies and love going to the movies and not understand why we couldn't go watch Inside Out 8 times because it would have cost $300, right? Like, and I think for the kind of movies that Pixar often makes, like I actually don't mind this. Like I'll happily go pay to watch something that I really like in the movie theater, but also I kind of like the idea of beta testing it for free at home before I shell out $50 to go to the movies in San Francisco.
So is this a movie where, and could you see yourself and families watching a movie on Disney Plus, loving it, and then in the same release window wanting to pay to do the theatrical experience?
I would
of watching
100% pay to watch this movie in theaters if it weren't for
that's what you would hope.
Yeah.
That's I mean, because some people for the old Pixar films, when in the window you would only be able to watch in theaters, that's when you go watch it 2, 3, 4 times because they're so resonant.
I mean, look, Disney is in a place where they want ongoing revenue rather than spikes. So look, this is, I think, probably my favorite Pixar movie since Inside Out.
Oh!
I absolutely love it.
Jerry said the exact same thing. independent of this.
Well, and at the same time, I think this is one of the first animated films that we've seen that we're seeing the influence of Spider-Verse on. We're
Interesting.
like Mitchell's versus the Machines is probably the other one, which obviously is a Lord and Miller executive produced film, but like the density and the richness and texture of this world is the same kind of jump. Remember when you watched A Bug's Life and Ants and you're like, oh wow, Pixar's doing something different than DreamWorks is. This feels like the same thing with regard to everything that's come before it from Pixar. Like they looked at, somebody clearly looked at what Spider-Verse did in terms of like the richness and complexity of every single frame, and took that as a challenge to tell a clear story, present clear images, yet also layer an incredible amount of detail in on top of this film.
I heard someone say that this film was Pixar's most Miyazaki-like film.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Character design-wise, it's unlike their human characters are unlike the Pixar characters you've seen in human characters like in Inside Out. Just looking at screenshots and trailers, it looked almost like Aardman-like a little bit. But it has a whimsy, and it really embraces the location of being in Italy. And the culture there. But what was about the film that resonated with both of you?
I think along the same lines of what you're saying, it was also like a Studio Ghibli movie. It was like sort of not about spectacle necessarily. It was about like this small. It was a very small set.
Life.
The whole movie is set in a small amount of space, and it's not about like showing off animation techniques and new things. It's not going to take you on a roller coaster ride like Incredibles 2 or something like that. It is more about like it's about friendship and it's about character, and it really resonated with me. Like it's also, I would say, a little more maybe nuanced and subtle than some Pixar movies, which I love. Almost all Pixar movies, they're great and then they make me feel good. But this one I think is metaphorical in a way that most aren't.
Look, there were multiple points in here where you could have done some real Pixar waterworks, and they chose to just tell the story and let the characters be honest, and they earned an emotional turn at the end. It's weird because it's kind of a modern retelling of the Huck Finn story. Like a little bit. Not exactly. There's obviously branches and like without all the racism. But it's so Enrico Casarosa also directed La Luna, which is one of my favorite Pixar shorts. It's the one with the grandfather, this father, and the son who go out and sweep the shooting stars off the moon. And like that style is evident here. Like I saw this, I was like, oh, is this the same? Oh, it is. He finally got to direct a movie. Yay! But it's just an absolute beauty. The characters are like the silhouettes and the design of the characters is so good that you never get lost in a shot. And there's physical humor that's really, really funny. There's a scene, I don't know if you got to it yet, Norm, because I know you had to punch out halfway through, but there's a scene where the lead character's parents are looking for him, and there's such good physical comedy during the bit when they come across a bunch of human kids playing a game, and they go through this whole, like, the sequence is really good. I don't want to spoil it, but it's just thoughtful and lovely. It's actually reminiscent. Coco is the other thing that this reminds me of, because Coco was rich and textured and had that kind of same attention to detail and
really
texture
embedded in a culture, right? Like it was, in Coco, in Mexican culture, and here in Italian, down to language, down to just everything on screen. It didn't seem like it was just through an American lens. It's also, we can agree, Maya Rudolph is great as an animated mom. Both in Mitchell versus the Machine and here.
Yep.
Animated mom, best animated mom 2021 for sure.
Totally, 100%.
I like that they took back the Mermaid movie as well. Like, not, I guess didn't take back, because they put it out there with Little Mermaid and no one else really did anything since. But they improved on it tremendously. Like Little Mermaid, as much as I love the soundtrack, it doesn't really hold up about this, princess who gives away her voice in order to go up and be with a man. Like,
she's 16, Jeremy. She's 16.
She was only 16.
There's a lot that's not okay about that movie. But this is, while there is male and female characters in this, like I don't want to spoil it, but it's not movie about falling in love and romance. It's like that's not the goal
Or is it?
of anybody in the movie.
No, it's not.
It's about friendship, and
You can have love in a friendship.
absolutely, but
Oh, true.
it's not the kind of love that princess movies were typically about.
Romantic love in that way,
Yeah.
the fairy tale romance.
Right.
Yeah, a come of age story about friendship. Call it Swim by Me, right? Yeah. So we got Swim by Me and we got Cha Cha Land. Those are the two recommendations this week for movies.
No, Norm.
All right, let's move on. I know we were running short on time for you guys because you guys have day jobs and real things to do. But the last thing I want to talk about is EVs, because both of you also have been going on recent EV journeys. Will, I don't know if we've had you on since you are now a EV operator.
Look.
You operate, you run a Bolt, and then Jeremy also going on a journey to look and shop around potentially for a new EV.
Look, we looked at Jeremy's Bolt. Jeremy took me on a test drive like 2 years ago, and then I didn't leave the house for a year. And at the end of that year, it was time to replace one of our cars, and we started looking and like looked at Teslas and stuff like that. And then like the little voice in the back of my head was like, Jeremy loves his Bolt. And
well, Chevrolet also offered pretty good deal.
Like Chevrolet offers an unfreaking believable deal. Like there's no like when you take into the incentives that they have to do in order to like, be able to continue selling pickup trucks in California, there was no other choice we could have made that was responsible. I was a little worried about Bolt battery, like their battery tech. I wasn't super convinced. So we ended up just leasing instead of buying. But I think at the end of 3 years, if we like the car and the battery hasn't degraded too badly, we're probably going to look at an EUV or something like that, whatever the hotness is when the lease is up.
That's an interesting thing where the lease becomes a really viable option because you don't know what battery health, unlike leasing a traditional gas powered car where, the tank is always going to be the same capacity here. Battery upkeep becomes a thing. And so, the lease might make a lot of sense. And like you said, there are great incentives here in California for things like Chevy, which is not what you would see for like a EV only company like Tesla, which never has the same kind of incentives because they're not doing this transition from gas powered to EV.
It's kind of an unfair competitive landscape for the pure EV folks, honestly. But I'll happily take advantage of it, and I love the Bolt. It's been really fun.
Awesome. Jeremy, what about your shopping?
I was excited about to see what the EUV was all about because I was confused by its announcement. I just wanted all of the high-end features that it has, like Chevy's Super Cruise, their autopilot, in the new Bolt. And they didn't do that. They made this whole new SUV version of the Bolt called the EUV, and they put all the high-end stuff in that. And when I test drove it a week ago, I figured out why they did it. Because I had also test drove a Model 3 the week prior. And I realized that the Bolt when it's fully loaded, it's going to cost about $40,000. So does the Model 3 standard range. And they have the exact same range and a similar feature set. But the Model 3 is, I think, objectively you get more for your money with that car. There's a lot more technology in it. There's a lot more like electronics in it, as far as like just the interior goes. And
just fewer radar sensors.
Yeah, nowadays. But it's just got it's more car for your money. And so I don't think that Chevy thought they could compete with the Model 3. So they needed the high-end Bolt to compete with the Model Y. So that's why they made it the SUV. And so if you look online, like they were successful. All the comparisons compare the EUV to the Model Y and the Bolt to the Model 3. That's where they look good because that's where there's a much bigger cost savings if you go with the Bolt in both cases.
I think it's also interesting when you talk about comparing the specs because a lot of things are not only price, but also the range become the two things people look at the most. But on Tesla, you have a very technology-driven experience where when you say you get a lot more tech, that may not be a plus for a lot of people. The UI being a thing that changes so often, and things like relying on computer vision for sensing the cars as opposed to radar, and they're forward thinking in the sense that they're making all these decisions on the Tesla side in anticipation of full self-driving, where that's a big leap already for people who are making a big leap into EVs, just that new experience. And so the Bolt still feels like it's because the company itself, Chevy, is they were early to EV, but they're still making that transition. Their customer base, like Ford's customer base, is also making the transition along with them, and so you don't have this wildly different experience from driving a traditional car.
Yeah, I maintain that that the Model 3 and the Model Y and the whole Tesla experience is designed for full self-driving, and we're just in this interim period before they've gotten there. That
I,
screen is a computer, is a spaceship console.
I mean, the thing I'll say is that we've put a couple thousand miles on the Bolt probably by now. I have yet to have the whole UI crash on me, which is really nice. The speedometer works all the time.
So lucky, so lucky.
When I glance down, I see it, and I glance back up. It's where I've been trained by 30 years of driving to know how fast I'm going and like how much fuel I have and all that stuff. So I like the center console when we get to the point that the cars are self-driving, if that ever happens. I'm all for the weird center console thing, but when I'm driving using 30 years of muscle memory, I kind of like having a speedometer where I expect it to be when I look down.
Yeah, or a thermostat that you can use without taking your eyes off the road.
Yeah, it turns out being able to turn the air conditioning on by just reaching over and pressing a physical button, pretty convenient.
Or moving a physical lever, to direct the air. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. We could talk about this for hours, but keep us apprised of your journey shopping for your new car, because I'm really interested in what you end up getting.
I want to hear what you think about the EV offline, Jeremy. I got to talk to you about that.
Yeah. So we do have time just for literally a minute or two of VR. There are massive amount of VR games announced in the E3 timeframe. Upload VR did a big showcase, so some big highlights for me. You had for Demio, one of our favorites, the new Rumble the Rat King coming out on June 28th. That's in less than a week, so we're going to play some of that. You have updates for After the Fall. That's from Vertigo Games, the Arizona Sunshine folks. This is their fast-paced co-op zombie shooter, and they announced a director system that's going to allow more dynamic variations in enemy spawns, enemy AI, between playthroughs to give it more variation. Against is a new game that was announced. It's a parkour free running game that's a rhythm-based action game from the developers of Stride, which is the parkour game. And it's going to be released later this year. And then Resolution Games had updates to Blastin. And Blastin, that's a game that made some VR headlines lately because it was announced that they were going to be one of the first games to do in-game advertising via Facebook. And they have now backed off on that, although they may be open to that on their fishing game is where that they may be experimenting with that. That's a longer conversation that we'll talk about later. I Expect You to Die 2, highly anticipated. This is from Shell Games, VR Escape Room. We're big fans of the original. Has again the retro theme, the James Bond-esque theme, and Pistol Whip has modifiers coming out. So a lot of stuff. There's a new Sam and Max game. There's updates to Waltz the Wizard. New games, updates to classic games. On the Quest side, version 30. We talked about version 28. V28 was such a big thing with Airlink. Then we had V29 and now version 30. So you're getting more multitasking with browsers and stats and app screen. I think they're really trying to get this infinite office thing off the ground. There is getting... what is it? Airlink on original Quest as well as a officially supported thing. So that's massive for people who have a PC who want to do and the Wi-Fi network to do streaming. And then Microsoft's microphone swapping is a thing. So as we've experienced playing multiplayer games, using the game's voice support versus the friends chat party microphone support is a thing they're still trying to figure out, and there are better ways to navigate between that now, and that's in the version 30 update for the Quest.
I wish there was just a Discord client for the Quest. That would be so nice.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. They did remove live streaming of broadcasting of your in-game stuff to Facebook streams, which I'm not sure how many people use that, but my feeling is that they sunsetted that feature in anticipation probably of more ways to broadcast, because I definitely feel like they want people to be broadcasting the type of VR games in some way.
My thought is that the part of this new rollout, the version 30, is the multiplayer. I'm sorry, the multitasking. And so you in the home, you can open up multiple home apps, official Oculus apps, and put them next to each other. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the stepping stone towards, hopefully, please, fingers crossed, being able to open up a web browser in any game. And if that's the case, you've got Discord
Yeah, there you go.
Anything else?
Well, I think both ways, because the original Oculus desktop software, you could do that kind of overlay with the web browser and Dash, right? And those features aren't making their way. They're really powerful, really great powerful compositor features. I think more likely, my hope is that the number of apps that you can open in multitasking right now, it's basically web browsing is the most powerful one, like your health, exercise stats. That's not really interesting to me. But if they open a framework for third-party devs to then get approved multitasking apps, then you can have potentially a Discord-like thing that you can quickly tap, because they do have a way to composite when in any game the main menu, right? When you press the Oculus button, and that's running independently in a separate thread. So something like that, where it can be running in the background, like video recording, that you hit the Oculus button and it pops up. That would work well for me too. That's it. Cool. I know you guys got to get to work.
Yeah,
Thank you both so much for spending the time with us this morning. We'll talk more offline about the EV stuff and some more VR stuff. But we'll be back next week with another episode ahead of the July 4th break. Hopefully, we'll be able to see each other in person soon.
Love that.
And until then, here is an outro, a vintage outro, also from Great Job. Let's load it up. Here we go.
Hi there, I didn't see you.
That's it. All right. There's one existential question that's been on my mind for decades. Mm-hmm. And it's really one that I think most people have asked, and it's really, why do horses only have one toe?
Whoa.
Why would they have developed one out of that? Like, evolution doesn't be like, yeah, I don't like that toe. Get that toe out of here.
That's the way God wanted it.
That's it.
There goes some food for thought for the weekend for you. All right, you can listen to Will and his podcast at techpod.content.town.
That's right. 25th anniversary Quake this week.
That's right.
What?
Could have talked about that.
I know.
So much to talk about. All right, we'll have to catch up another time. Thanks for listening.
Bye, guys.
Bye.